Depending who you ask, we're either approaching a recession or we may already be in one, because generally a recession is defined as 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP growth, and we've already experienced that this year. Whichever side of the table you sit on, it's a good time to revisit your financial foundations and talk about how to weather a potential economic storm. From a creator's perspective, brand deals may shrink and businesses may kind of tighten up their freelance budgets because we've never really seen a full recession since the creator economy took off. So it's going to be interesting to see how this affects us as a whole, but economic conditions are completely out of our control, and in this video we're going to talk about a few tactical things you can do to put yourself in a position to thrive. So number one, you got to know your cash flow for both your personal finances and your business finances. And your cash flow is simply the money coming in each month and the money you have going out each month, which are your expenses. To get an understanding of your cash flow, you need to go back through the past few months of your transactions. So you could look at your credit card statements or your bank account, or if you use an app like Rocket Money, you could just quickly look at that stuff and get a rough overview of your income and your expenses. Then for the business, you would need to do the same thing, but you would use your accounting software and your bank statements to get that overview. And the reason that knowing your cash flow is so important, especially in a recession, is so that you can cut unnecessary costs and see where your income's coming from, and so you can make smart financial decisions based on real data and information. Second, you want to aim to eliminate high interest debts. This would be anything that has over 6 to 8% interest rates, and high interest debt is the most expensive thing you can have in your monthly budget, so it's important to identify it and then work to pay it down. Then once you have it paid off, that extra money that you were paying in interest can go towards savings or regular expenses or invested back into your business. There are a lot of ways to pay down debt, like the debt avalanche or the debt snowball methods, but if you have a lot of outstanding balances and a lot of high interest debt, it might make sense to consolidate it to hopefully save on some interest costs, or homeowners might decide to take out a home equity line of credit, a HELOC. But taking out a line of credit on your home can be helpful, but you also have to be very careful with this strategy because missed payments could possibly result in you losing your home. And the third strategy to managing your money in your business during recession is to build a stronger cash reserve, because there is nothing that provides more financial security than a healthy savings account. You should always aim to have at least 3 months of your living expenses saved in an emergency fund or a cash reserve, but when the economy gets shaky, I try to aim for at least 6 months, because if you were to lose your job or lose your income, or if expenses went up, you would at least be able to continue your regular way of life for several months before having to make any adjustments. And the fourth thing to do is review your subscriptions. And this partially plays into cash flow, but you want to make sure to check all your recurring subscriptions, either monthly, quarterly, or annually, because those can kind of be forgotten about. If you don't pay attention to them, that's just an extra expense in your budget that doesn't need to be there. When you're reviewing your spending from the cash flow step, you should easily be able to see any recurring charges, or you could also use an app like Rocket Money that identifies your subscriptions so you can go out and easily cancel them if you need to. The fifth tip is to raise your rates if possible, and this isn't directly related to money management, but it can be a huge opportunity for those who do freelance work or charge brands for specific projects. Even though the economy may be tightening up, certain businesses aren't as affected as others, so your services or your rates really may not adjust too much. But with inflation, raising rates is already justified, and you should be doing that regularly anyway, but it may be time to consider raising rates across the board if you're highly experienced or highly specialized to support yourself and give yourself more income. The sixth tip I have may be the most important for self-employed people, and it's to keep marketing. If you're a creative and you struggle with self-promotion, like, I get it, it's tough, and especially with everything else going on in the world, it can kind of feel gross at times. It can be a difficult line to walk, but when it comes to your business and your livelihood, you need to keep marketing and putting yourself out there, or business is going to dry up, and in a recession, that is the last thing you want to happen. And one of the last pieces of advice I have for creative businesses is to consider in-house work. It may not be an ideal situation, but there are a lot of places trying to hire, and even though you may have to sacrifice some freedom, guaranteed income and benefits during a recession can be an absolute godsend. And the last tip I have is to look for opportunities. Uncertain times can present unique opportunities, and this list of questions from one of my favorite creators, Justin Moore, highlight some things to ask yourself, like, where am I making the most money right now, and what would it take for me to double that in the next few months? Or can I lock in any sponsors right now if I offered them preferred pricing on long-term deals? Like, when you're self-employed, there are a lot of different ways that you can structure your business and structure your pricing, so don't be afraid to get creative when it comes to getting paid for your work. But those were 8 tips to manage your money and your creative business during a recession, and if you have any questions, just drop them in the comments and I'll reply as soon as I can.